Welcome back, listeners. I have Zoe with me. You might remember her from the first episode of our new format where we played Monster of the Week.
Yes.
I have not titled the first episode yet, so you know what it's called, but I don't. Zoe, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Zoe. Pronouns are she, her. And I'm excited to be here with Ryan, who is a friend of mine of many years.
Yeah. Just for the benefit of people who might want to hire your talented self, Zoe's last name is Hovland.
Yes. If we can do last names. Sorry, I wasn't sure.
Oh, no, absolutely you can. That's kind of part of the point, is if you have something that you want to get out there, we amp it up.
Got it.
So why don't you spell your first and last name, just because sometimes Zoe is spelled with a Y, and sometimes it's spelled with 2 dots over the E, and sometimes it's spelled with an I-E.
Yeah, lots of different Zoe variations. So Z-O-E, last name is H-O-V-L-A-N-D, and I'm on SoundCloud, and that's kind of, and I'm on Facebook, Zoe Hovland Composer, would find me there. Yeah, so I majored in music composition in college, and since then I've done music for kind of a variety of things, but podcast music has become a little bit of a niche, starting with my friend Abby, who did a podcast.
That was before our failed Sweet Sugar Candy attack, wasn't it?
It was called something paranormal. Oh my gosh. It's driving me bananas that I can't remember it, but that was a few years ago. And so starting with that, I wrote the theme for that. I've written
Supporting Paranormal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Google.
Yes, Google come through
in the clutch.
Yeah, and then I've done music too for some web series and some real world events, including Ryan and Matt's wedding.
Yeah.
And my sister's wedding. So yeah, that's kind of my art stuff.
Yeah. I am going to ask you more about your music, but before we dig into that, tell me about creating June and your thoughts behind June.
Sure. It's not real deep. I'm just it's like when Ryan was lobbing different
Playbooks.
settings at me. Yeah. And one of them was Greaser Girl Gang. I was like, oh yeah, that one. So then I was like, okay, a high schooler. And it's challenging for me to go real, to role play someone who's drastically different than me. So I would say June and me share a lot in common. I joked about being flustered with the whole flirtation thing from Crash, and that's very much me. I don't know. I guess I can be a little smoother than that, but not by much. Not by much.
All your little laughs were so cute, though.
Thank you.
Oh, I love June so much, and it's only been one episode.
But yeah, kind of the well-meaning, genuine sort of there for her friends type person.
Yeah.
That's kind of the inspiration.
You chose the mundane.
Yeah.
You did have an idea of a supernatural-esque kind of thing that I'm just not going to bring up right now. Mm-hmm. And it might come up later. But if it does come up later, you still don't need to listen to the first episode to hear the next episode that Zoe's on. It'll still work. Anyway. But you had this kind of supernatural idea, but you still went with the mundane as the playbook instead of choosing something like Spellslinger or Flake, or I don't know. I looked at a lot of different options when we were talking about what June might be. Mm-hmm. What made you go with the mundane?
A few things. I liked from the get-go the idea of a character that wasn't super inundated with paranormal stuff and was sort of new to the world.
Just getting her feet wet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which fits with that archetype. Some of the playbooks too, at least the verbiage in the actual book make some of those archetypes out to be a little dark or inclined towards darker themes. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know that's the direction I want to go per se. And of course there's a lot of flexibility baked into the game, so you don't have to go that direction. But I still was kind of mundane feels to me like one where I can lean into that, getting her feet wet type of, thing. And,
Yeah.
just discovering this world for the first time, and also be the sort of, sweet, personality that I was aiming to be.
Yeah.
So.
And I think you really did achieve that, especially when Hina didn't annoy her.
Yeah, no, I was like, oh, I feel like this girl gets a bad rap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed playing this with you. It was the first time that I had ever played Monster of the Week, let alone be the keeper. And it was your first time playing Monster of the Week too, right?
Yeah.
What did you think of the gameplay?
Just couldn't be easier.
Yeah.
I mean, with a couple exceptions of us needing to be like, wait, do I do this? Does this mean this? I don't know.
And that'll just be experience on both of our parts.
Yeah. I like that it's simple.
Yeah.
I mean, I've played D&D and I enjoy D&D, but I think unless you play consistently and for a pretty extended period, which is not usually me, I play intermittently at best.
Right.
It's hard for me to be like, I don't know what bonus this is. I'm not.
Yeah.
So this is much more straight up and down, and I like that. And I also am a fan of the McElroy's work, and so the Adventure Zone arc that uses Monster of the Week, help me out.
Amity.
Amnesty.
Amnesty.
Yeah.
That one.
Oop. I love that.
My turn to blow out the mic. Yeah, Amnesty was a lot of fun, and that's actually how I first heard about it too. When I bought it, I was surprised, but also really happy to see that all of the stats are already there for you, and you just pick the one that suits your character best.
I like that too.
Yeah.
Character creation, oh my god, it's night and day
simple.
compared to D&D.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love D&D. I've been playing since high school, and I'm also kind of an intermittent player, but I don't generally have a problem picking back up with D&D. But at the same time, if you're just trying to get somebody into tabletop games, D&D is daunting compared to this.
Completely agree. Yeah. I have friends. My good friend, Jess, has always been like, I think this could really be my cup of tea, but I am so intimidated.
Yeah.
When I look at, the rule book, I'm like, whoa, okay, that's a lot to learn. And it is. Again, over time.
Yeah. And I
you
say
get more comfy with it.
Pick it back up pretty easily, and that's true, but at the same time, rules of combat in D&D always mess me up.
Yeah.
How do you flank? What does an attack of opportunity mean? How often does that come up?
Yeah.
Whereas with Monster of the Week, it's just, do you do the thing or not? Mm-hmm. And you're both going to get hurt in the process because that's how a fight works.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I completely, agree.
Yeah. So I think suffice it to say, we are both big fans.
Yes.
And Masks is kind of the same kind of system. So if you're more interested in superheroes, Masks is also a good way to go.
Awesome.
And we will be playing Masks with a different guest later. And we'll use the modified rules put forth by Aaron Cerise from Super Idols. So that'll be cool. Stick around for that. You said that podcast music has kind of become your niche. Mm-hmm. So it was Abby first.
Yep.
Was it us after that?
Yeah, I do think it was the Magical Girls one after that.
Yeah.
And then I actually got a commission that wasn't a friend, which felt really good for a podcast. And, oh man, I mean, I would love to plug it. I'm, again, blanking because it was a few years ago now.
Yeah.
But I do remember that it was a Lovecraft podcast. I think it might have been actual play as well. I'll just kind of casually scroll through my messages and look for it as we discuss other things. But yeah, yeah. So I would say it's become a niche, and I really like it. I really, really like it.
Does it feel very different than other music writing you've done?
No, not terribly different. I've always been where I excel compositionally, I think, is with short melodies. Longer, prolonged pieces are sometimes hard for me.
Yeah.
I mean, just, there's more material. You have to make it interesting for a longer period.
Right.
More orchestration, just more of everything. And so in that sense, the short cues of music that you typically hear in podcasting, that caters to my strengths.
Yeah. When I first started throwing things out at you for the game as Afoot, one of the things that I threw out at you was a Saved by the Bell remix. I don't think you ever got to write that. I think that got vetoed pretty fast by everyone else. Yeah. But what you did send me, and what ultimately became the theme to the show, we just loved instantly.
Oh, I'm glad.
And something that I do just want to put out there for anyone listening who might want to hire Zoe, yes, I'm biased, but you should do it anyway, is that she gave us 3 or 4 different transitional options as well. And one is like religiously used now for fight sequences. Although now that transition is not going to fit the mood of every game that I play, I might have to noodle around with other stuff. But for that project, it was great because I had different options to change from one thing to another. The transition into the mid-roll was different from the transition into battle, and I had a third transition to play with if I needed to. Is that something that kind of comes naturally to you, creating those little transitions after creating the main theme?
Yeah, definitely. It's much, I mean, because then you have melodies that you can cut and splice. You have different instruments that you can put those melodies on. That part is much simpler because all the pieces are already there. You just have to rearrange them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. When you're approaching a project, do you like having people give you different musical examples of something that they enjoy? Or do you prefer getting a general idea of what the project is and being loose and free from there? Or is it a balance?
I've done both. Like, for you, you mentioned Saved by the Bell and then Fillmore, which I was like, oh my God, that show ruled.
Yes,
and Recess, I think.
So good. Yes, I did also mention Recess.
And I like that because then you can be like, okay, this is sort of this, like, drums feature heavily in this, horns feature heavily in this, so I can cherry pick those things but try to make something different. Yeah. But this other commission, he was kind of just like, yeah, it's like Lovecraft. Go. Yeah. And I was like, okay. But I still did what I like doing, which is that I make like 2 or 3, minimum 2, usually 3 different options, and I might not mix them to be super smooth sounding, but it's like well mixed enough to give the person I'm working for an idea of like, oh, this could blossom into this if it was more developed. Right. Just like snippets. Yeah. And then they can choose like, okay, I like this and I like this. Is there any way you could sort of fuse those? I don't like this one as much. Yeah. So like stay away from those tones, those, you know, instruments, whatever it is. Because then I can be like, okay, I'll fine tune from that feedback. Right. So.
And I think feedback helps any artist.
Absolutely.
Yeah. God, that just made me think of, do you listen to any of the shows from the Exactly Right podcast network?
I don't think so.
There's a show on that network called Bananas, and they just find the most nutso news stories you can find. But the prompts that they gave their songwriter for that was, embody this specific artist, say the word banana as many times as possible.
That's fun.
So the chorus is just like, driving me bananas, baby, bananas, banana, nana. And it's just such a jam.
It sounds like a jam.
I'll have to show it to you later. Yeah. Do you have much experience songwriting with lyrics? Or is that something new that you might want to explore?
I only have one really solid piece of experience with that, and that was back in college. I wrote like a very short musical adaptation of Hansel and Gretel.
Oh my God, I want to see it.
I can't believe I've never told you about this.
No, this is new to me.
That's wild. Okay, so I do have a recording, but for various reasons, it was part of my senior thesis. Like, the thesis was to basically present a collection of, I think, at least like 45 minutes of your music. And so you had to find performers, obviously. Yeah. The musical was the biggest chunk of it. I was mostly working with student musicians, and bless his heart, a couple of them were just like younger, and maybe like they didn't quite put as much practice into rehearsals as they should have. And so I will play you the recording at some point, I promise. It was really fun.
But it probably shouldn't be stuck in here.
No. Yeah, sadly. But
now I just want a whole series of Zoe Hovland retells the stories.
The story behind the recording. The story behind this recording was that a couple people kind of pooped out on me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I had an amazing harpist. She was a paid actual gig musician in Portland, and the harp really carried the whole thing in a really impressive way. So,
well, that's cool.
Yeah, so that was my lyrical music writing experience. I've always loved musicals. Yeah, that was a blast.
Yeah.
So I'm not opposed to doing it again at all. It's just different for me.
Yeah. It's also not what you have the most practice in.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that I have this wonderful knowledge that I didn't have about you before, I kind of want to play a little game.
Okay.
I'm going to name a fairy tale, and then I want you to tell me what style of music you would do it in, like pop or rock or whatever.
Okay.
And we won't do this very long. I'm just entertained by this notion, and I want to see what you say.
Okay.
Okay. So you already did Hansel and Gretel, but we're going to put that one aside.
Okay.
Little Red Riding Hood.
I should say, too, not to, like, goof up the game, I did different styles within
Fair
the
enough.
musical. So, like, well, and I say styles. It was all pretty much what you'd expect from a musical, but, like, the villain song, so The Witch in the Candy Cottage, played by Heather, P.S., was like
Listener, you can't see this, but I just made a series of amazed faces.
That's another one of our good mutual friends.
I didn't know any of this, and I'm really excited.
She loved it, too. She really hammed it up.
God.
That was a tango, which was, I think, probably my favorite thing that I wrote, like in the standout piece from the whole deal.
I need to see this.
Oh, and Hannah played the Wicked Stepmother. She was also really into it.
Oh.
Yeah, it was really another longtime friend for the audience. And my sister.
The first time I met you was because of a role-playing game.
Yes, it was. It was the murder mystery.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about that actually now. 'Cause now I'm excited.
But yeah, I don't know, for Little Red Riding Hood, pop. I'm feeling a pop.
Pop could be
that
fun
one.
for that.
Mm-hmm. See, part of what's hard is that I know my genre and I know what I'm good at, and it is sort of like either pop adjacent or really. I mean, this was my training, quote unquote, such as it is, was like classical,
more
orchestral. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, like for a long time, what I thought I wanted to do was film scores, and I still I mentioned I scored for a web series,
right?
And that was, which Drew's podcast for the End of the World is the name of that web series. Before I forget, it's not a podcast; it's a web series about a woman making a podcast
about the end of the world.
Yes. So
I did enjoy that. Mm-hmm. Is it still going?
No.
I didn't think so. I thought I finished it. So the first time I met you was during a murder mystery game. And Mads and I were going to college then, and you came up to join us, as well as Hannah. Mm-hmm. It was just the two of you, if I'm not mistaken.
Laura, I believe. Maybe Christine as well.
I don't think Christine was there.
Then
it was maybe Laura.
It must have been. Yeah, I feel like it was Laura.
The character you played for that, because it was one of the games that one of our club members had written, was very Captain America-esque.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what I'm getting at. I'm excited that you're here, and I love you, and that was fun.
Too. It was fun.
And I guess, okay, I know where I can go with this. I was going to ask this more to the end, because I'm planning on kind of having this be a finishing question. But it's on my mind, so let's just do it.
Sure.
As a queer person, that's what I should talk to you about first. So you kind of recently,
yes,
not super, super recently, but I guess compared to the rest of us that are kind of surrounding you in your life, kind of recently came out.
Yeah, it was round about a year ago.
Yes.
Maybe a little more than that.
Somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. What was that like for you? Like kind of figuring it out and then making the decision to come out? And I mean, everyone in the community knows that coming out is kind of a continuous experience because there's always going to be someone else who doesn't know it about you. Mm-hmm. And you're either going to come out by being with somebody or just having the conversation or by having somebody make an assumption that you want to correct. And that's a whole balancing act, and I'm getting ahead of myself. But
it's all true.
Yes. But it's all true. Mm-hmm. But what was that like, kind of figuring that out for yourself so late in life?
Yeah.
There's never a bad time to do it, but...
Yeah. Well, it was because I Like, for a long time, there's been a joke with me and my many queer friends of like, oh, poor Zoe, the straight one. Like, and
we did call you the token straight
Yes,
for a while when we
yeah.
all lived together.
yeah. And, but even while I was in that position of being the straight one, I was always able to be like, dang, that's a really attractive woman, which is, you know, not, I feel like there's, you can be straight and still have that aesthetic appreciation.
Yeah, it's not necessarily indicative.
Yeah. The more time went on and the more I was like feeling that way about, again, we're talking random strangers type of thing, celebrities or more often podcasters where I've been like, dang, that person's really attractive. And then there was someone I worked with at work who had started, like, obviously I couldn't help but notice she was attractive. And then we worked together. She's a contractor, not like an actual like coworker.
Right. Temporary.
Yeah. But we worked together a lot on this project. And so one day I was like, oh, I have feelings for this person. Okay. Well, that's revealing. Didn't go anywhere, tragically, because again, I was like, oh gosh, we worked together.
Yeah.
But it was illuminating. And so, yeah, my coming out was very small. Like, I made an Instagram post. I didn't make a Facebook post. I have more friends on Facebook who are really not particularly friends. Mm-hmm. Instagram is where kind of my people are. So it was a quick way to be like, hey, everyone, this is something about me that you maybe didn't know. Hey, all right.
Get it out of the way.
Yeah. With just the people, again, who I'm like, you know, I'm friends with uncle, cousin, whoever the heck on Facebook. And I'm like, I don't really care whether you know this about me or not.
Curating it on Insta.
Yeah. And then, of course, I did have like an in-person conversation with mom and dad. Like, hey, I got a crush on a woman recently. So
that's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was very private, everything considered. You know? Yeah. And unfortunately, it was also timed up with, you know, the pandemic. So I haven't really had a chance to get on apps or explore the physical side of this, really. Right. But I am excited to do that once vaccines are more.
I would just ignore OkCupid.
Okay.
I know it's one of the few free options out there. I would ignore it.
Got it.
That's the only advice I'm going to give you right now. Yeah. I honestly, when I saw your post about that on Instagram, I got super excited. Aww. And I yelled at Maz to come look at my phone.
You're so sweet.
Because we love you.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're going to love you regardless. But it was this moment of like, Zoe's joining us in our gay-ass family.
Yay! Yeah.
I also figured myself out later in life, when I was in college. Mm-hmm. Because of Mads, actually. Mm-hmm. Because when I was growing up, I didn't really have positive examples of queer people. There were some people in my high school that might have been queer. I don't know that for a fact. Small town rumor mill, you know? Mm-hmm. But when those people were talked about, it was with this spin of like, it was always girls and they were always bi. And they were always just doing it for attention. Mm. That really shitty thing.
Yeah, very much so.
Did you have more positive influences when you were growing up of queer folk?
For sure. Yeah. Me and my sister were very fortunate, in Hannah's case, the sister, only for high school. But we went to an arts magnet school that was middle through high.
Yeah.
She got in high school. I had gotten in middle school. Just a really accepting, awesome place. Mm-hmm. And one where there was zero chance, or if there was any chance, it was minimal that there would be any sort of blowback for coming out. You would get bullied for taking that stance, you know, for being anti anything. Yeah, and I was even in middle school as part of the Gay Straight Alliance. Remember those days?
My school didn't have one.
Oh, that's sad.
I mean, Mossy Rock is super, super small.
Do you think they have one now?
I don't know. I'd have to ask my mom. But at the same time, with a school that small, I can understand not having one for a couple of reasons. Like, one is there might just not be enough interest.
Yeah.
And then the other is if kids are closeted.
That's a pretty quick way to get outed.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, who knows?
Right.
But I didn't even know those were a thing until I graduated high school. Like, that was not even in my sphere.
Western probably had one, though, right?
Western had a few different gay clubs. I wasn't really too actively a part of any of them. The only time... You all are going to hear an embarrassing story about me right now. Let's save that embarrassing story for after this quick break. I want to thank you all again for sticking with me while I go through this format change. I've almost figured out what I want to do for the Patreon, patreon.com/TGIA podcast. So I will update my Twitter account when that is finalized. Other than that, please subscribe, rate, review, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts listening to this. It really helps us get the word out. Again, thank you, Zoe, for being our first guest. I'm going to thank her again at the end of this episode because I love her, and also I'm going to thank her for the music, so on and so forth. I am going to be taking a bit of a break from recording after mid-June. That's not going to affect the release schedule at all because I've got a lot of things already prepped. They just need to be edited. But in the meantime, if there is anyone in particular you would really like on the show, please reach out either on that Twitter account or at thegameisafootpodcast@gmail.com. And I'm going to do the best I can to get everyone, literally everyone on this show. I want to talk to them. I want to play with them. I want to be their best friend. I'm not joking. So let me know. And other than that, we're going to listen to a quick trailer from Control Pod. Control Pod is an all-queer podcast where they test out different game systems. And I actually have already had the pleasure of playing with one of their members, Dennis. We played Stars Without Number. So that episode will be coming up in the future. Look forward to that. And enjoy this trailer.
Bored of D&D? Want to try something else? Why not check out Control Group? We test systems so you don't have to. Using our patented mini campaigns along with one-shots, we test how far you can stretch systems with our unique ideas and broad storytelling. Our mission statement is to give a voice to those not often heard in the TTRPG community. So whether it be a system you've never heard of, or our testers being people of color, people on the LGBTQIA+ spectrum, we want to make sure our stories are broad, vast, and told from different perspectives. So whether you want classic role-playing or just big goofs, come listen to us try out systems, some of which we've even made ourselves. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, or head over to controlgrouppod.com. That's CTRL, just like the key on your keyboard. There you can find the systems we test along with easily accessible PDFs. So check us out if you're into Monster of the Week, Passion de los Pasiones, A Song of Fire and Ice, Lasers and Feelings, Gunsight, Void Worlds, Wizards and Wands, Stranded, Interstitial, The Last Shonen, and so much more!
Well, what are you still sitting here with me for? Go listen to the rest of the show. Bye! The only time that I went to one of these things is when I met a girl on OkCupid. And she was fine. That's not why I'm telling you to avoid it. But I met this girl on OkCupid, and she was like, why don't we go meet at this meeting? And so I go to this meeting. I sit down next to who I think is her. And we talk the entire time, and I'm doing my best to flirt. And I don't know how to flirt. So it's really obvious when I'm trying to do it because I don't know what I'm doing. You see that panic in my eyes. And so I'm just trying to flirt with this girl this entire time. And at the same time, the people up front who are presenting to this honestly massive group, there were like 30 people there. We're talking about like horrific sex stories and like how one of them had told this girl that she liked fisting, and the other girl who didn't know what fisting was literally just punched her in the pussy. Just punched her.
That's unfortunate.
So all of this is happening. I'm trying to flirt with this girl, and then after the meeting, a different girl comes up to me and is like, "You're Ryan, right? Let's go on a walk." And I'm like, oh no.
Crap.
I flirted with the wrong girl this whole time.
That is very funny.
So that was my first time in a gay social club setting, excluding the bar in town.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember if I had been there at that point, but it was there.
Well, if you were a freshman, I don't know if you would have.
I wasn't a freshman.
Okay.
I think I was a junior at that point.
Okay.
She was the last person I dated before Mads.
Okay.
So either a sophomore or a junior.
Got it.
No, I must have been a junior because of where I ended up living. I was a junior.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got there.
Yes.
But yeah, that was my first time in a gay social setting, and we didn't have GSAs or anything like that. At that Arts Magnet, that's where you met Mads.
Yes, it is. Back in middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So listeners already know Mads through the podcast, but Mads is the reason I met Zoe. Because Mads and I were already in the Murder Mystery Club, and Mads invited Zoe up.
Were you guys dating at the time of that game?
No.
Yeah, I kind of thought that. I thought were you roommates? Or
Not that year. We were roommates for one specific year. I think it was the year after you came to that game.
Okay.
Zoe is one of the major influences behind us actually dating in the
Oh,
first
it's true.
place.
It's true. I drunkenly gave
my
Mads
God.
some advice
I love that
that
story
they should
so much.
they should quote go for it.
Yeah.
And they did go for it.
Eventually, we got there. It was a struggle. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you had those positive queer influences.
Me too.
Growing up.
Me too. And Hannah, Hannah also had those influences, and I think it made her personal journey with coming out a lot easier as well. So.
Yeah. Not to dig into Hannah's business too much.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to do that extensively.
Was she out when you were in high school?
Yes, eventually. Yeah.
So
Yeah, during high school.
yeah. So she was also a queer influence on your life before you even got to college.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to find all the pieces that are Zoe so that I can show everyone how amazing you are.
Oh my gosh.
Because that's kind of the whole reason I wanted to start this podcast in the first place. Not even just this format, but in general. When I first started playing the other game with my friends, I was like, all my friends are amazing and I want everyone to know about it. And you're amazing and I want everyone to know about it. So I guess before I ask the question that I'm planning on asking at the end, let's talk about Holden.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I know that this isn't really related to your music, and one could argue that every experience you have is a queer experience because you're queer. But adopting a dog is not specifically a queer thing.
No.
However,
It is a big part of my life, for sure.
yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Tell the listeners who Holden is, and then we'll kind of dig in.
Yeah. Yeah. So Holden is a dog that I adopted fall of 2016.
Oh my God, I didn't even realize
it was very shortly after we all moved in together. Very shortly.
I didn't realize it'd been that long.
Yeah. Yeah, he's over 5 now.
Oh my God.
And he was 9 months when I adopted him. So yeah, he's been around.
He's growing up so
He is. Yeah, so Holden is this dog. I had just gotten out of a relationship, which I think was part of it. And then I also just moved into this lovely house where we had lots of space and a big yard.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want a dog. So we went to the shelter, got connected with this dog who seemed pretty chill in the meeting room. I first met him with me and my mom, and then we brought...
I didn't realize your mom was there the first time.
Yeah. So the time we all met him, we brought the whole housemate crew to meet him because we were like, well, we should make sure this meeting goes well if we're going to adopt him. And it did, with all the housemates. And
In
then I took
retrospect, that wasn't really a good
No,
test.
unfortunately, no. Yeah, I mean, I would urge anyone who's thinking about adopting a dog to see if the shelter, not all shelters will, but certainly most rescues will do like a home visit thing, because that's going to be way more indicative.
Or maybe
of the
you could
dog's
foster
behavior.
for a while first.
Yeah, just get a sense of how the dog acts in a home when the dog is like, okay, this is a home that I feel some amount of, possession or comfort in. Because he was a totally different dog when we brought him home than he was in the visiting room. Like, he was barking at everyone. He was just uneasy, he kind of bonded with me, but even that was like, you could just tell he was like...
It was kind of an if I have to moment.
Yeah. Yeah. He was kind of like, okay, that's my person. And I tried crate training him. That wasn't super successful. Finally, we brought a trainer in. And the trainer was like, this is a very, very challenging dog. And euthanasia is an option you have to consider.
Yeah.
And I was so freaked out, as anyone would be, and feeling like, oh my God, I'm so in over my head. The shelter did not know the extent of this dog's behavioral issues at all.
Yeah.
Anytime we would run into another dog, too, that was another whole set of issues, you know, barking and pulling and making a scene. And not like a I want to go meet that dog vibe, but like a I want to go attack that dog vibe.
Yeah. Pretty much everyone that he doesn't know.
Yeah.
Threats.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, but we worked with the trainer. The trainer was like, here are some medications, some daily behavioral modification medications.
You're talking about the second trainer, right?
Yes. Yeah, there was one interim trainer that was not a good fit. But then I got connected with Greta Kaplan, for anyone in the Portland area who's listening. Wonderful dog trainer. She's very busy right now. Don't know if she's taking on new clients, but she's awesome. So yeah, we worked together a lot. And there was already a pretty significant change just from the meds and from the few exercises that Greta shared.
I feel like with 2 visits, there was a difference.
There was. Yeah. I mean, on her second visit, she was like, okay, this is a dog you can work with. Like, if you keep doing what you're doing, you don't necessarily have to resort to, again, scary topic, euthanasia, you know.
Yeah.
So now, yeah, he's got his circle of people that he's okay with, and it's all the housemates that he was originally acclimated to, plus my mom, and that
still includes Madsen.
Yes,
and I,
it does,
which is amazing because we haven't lived in that house for over a year.
Yeah, but the fact that he remembers you, and even if there is still iffiness with like certain hugging behaviors and that type of thing,
that's just him being like, I'm protecting Mom.
Yeah. So that's good. I mean, now the challenge is getting him to be at least a tolerable level of friendly, if not like full lick your face. I think we've all kind of mentally, what's the word I'm looking for? We've all accepted at this point that like I'm probably going to be his only person, like fully like I'll do anything for that person. She can pick me up, she can scoop me down, like, which I can handle him to any extent that I want without any fear.
Yeah.
But I might be one of the only people who can, like, I don't know. I think I can get him around to people, i.e. my dad, who is unfortunately, like, he loves dogs. So he's very bummed that there's a dog that doesn't love him back.
Yeah.
And any future romantic partners. I mean, especially if I'm moving in with someone, right, which is the goal in the long term, to meet someone and live together and, you know, have kids. And that's a whole other, you know, semi-scary thing, is how do we make this dog be safe around kids?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been a real journey.
Yeah.
And a large part of my life.
I've got to say, the amount of progress you've made with him is nothing to sneeze at.
Thank you.
Like, I think you you definitely knew this. When he started being, let's be honest, aggressive, I was very against him staying. And you knew that. But with the amount of work that you've put in and the changes that he's made, I came around. He's a sweet dog when he knows who you are.
Yes.
And I think I just want to, like, reiterate how much of a change that was in me based on your good effort.
Oh, thank you.
Because when I was growing up, we had a dog named Parker. And he was a Pekingese. And he would not stop biting.
Oh, man.
And
like people in your family, like,
yes,
yeah.
Uh-huh. And it wasn't predictable. Like there was no trigger that we could see that signaled that he was going to do this. And in my family, the way I grew up, the area I grew up in, if a dog is aggressive or bites, that dog is a problem and you put that dog down. That's just how I grew up. So the fact that you put so much time and effort and money into this dog, to anyone, is amazing. But it's not something I've witnessed before. Why am I getting emotional?
Oh.
Why am I crying?
It's okay. I know. It's a lot of big feelings. You know, dogs, you really want to love a dog, and you really want to give that dog every chance you can.
Yeah.
And, you know, dogs are so pure. The thought of putting them down is a scary and sad one, and it brings up a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
What ended up happening with Parker, if you don't mind my asking?
We had to put him down.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I was even a preteen yet. So my siblings were younger than me. And a Pekingese is not a big dog, right? But those teeth are sharp.
Oh, yeah. Small dogs can do real serious puncture
Yeah.
bites if they're putting a lot of...
Yeah.
You
And
know.
he just wasn't safe to be around. Now, if we lived in an area where we had been able to find a trainer like Greta, would things have been different? I have no way of knowing. But I grew up in a pretty rural area. That's just what you did.
Right.
Which is not an excuse. It's just the facts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I brought it up in this interview specifically because it shows how much you are willing to dedicate to people and animals who need you. I want to make us both cry. And I just love you, and you're wonderful. And why am I doing this to us?
Well, folks, now we're both crying. So, there's that. I love you too, Ryan.
I love you.
I love you so much. And you are also, in terms of people who really put everything, everything they've got into supporting other people, that's you, man. That always has been you. Every project you take on, truly, it's amazing.
Well, I really
Yeah.
try. But
You do, and it shows.
I love you.
I love you too.
Okay. I think I'm done crying. Okay. I think we're going to kind of wrap this up.
Okay.
I think we've got a pretty good idea of how amazing and wonderful you are and how much you support people and animals and everyone. But before we go, the question that I keep hinting at that I want to have at the end of every episode. What is your advice for queer people trying to get into tabletop games or role-playing games? Because when you look at the people who are really visible in the community, you usually see straight, cis,
Yeah.
white dudes. And hey, I'm not knocking them. We both love the McElroys and the Adventure Zone.
Very much so, but yes.
But
All
there's
straight, all white, all heterosexual.
Right.
Yes.
There's a lack of a lot of different communities. So what is your advice for queer people trying to break into games? Not even in a public setting, just in general.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't want to shoot off from the mouth too much here because I don't know very much about it, but Dimension 20 is a D&D, I think it's only D&D, show that the host, the DM, Brennan, he is white and he is, as far as I know, straight. I don't want to speak for him. I'm not sure if he's ever made a statement to that effect, but the guests tend to be much more diverse.
Yeah.
And having only watched one full arc, Tiny Heist, which the McElroys were on, which is what brought me to it, it's very good. And it's easy to watch because sometimes the players are new to D&D.
Yeah.
But there's never any judgment and there's never any oh, you don't know what to add to that role. There's none of that.
Right.
And the story, Brendan's storytelling is really phenomenal. And there's sets too, so there's something visual to watch because I know sometimes the objection with oh my God, it's a 2-hour episode. Huh? I can't focus for that long. But there are visuals to compel you along and give you something to look at.
Yeah.
So I guess that'd be my advice. It's very queer friendly. Many of the NPCs are queer.
Yeah.
Just a truly delightful show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'd be a good starting place.
Yeah. Just to kind of familiarize yourself with
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. I think that's good advice. Zoe, my dear, I love you.
I love you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes,
That's
thank
fun.
you for coming. I'm sorry I made you cry.
It's okay.
And we will have you on again at some point.
Yes, I'm really excited. That last session was just a total blast.
Yeah, let's
really,
do it again.
really fun.
Okay, I'm going to stop this recording before we talk for 5 more hours. Bye! Thank you so much for listening. I'm Ryan, your Dungeon Master, and I'll be closing us out. First of all, thank you to Zoe Hovland for writing our theme music. If you're interested in hiring her talented self for any of your future projects, you can find her at facebook.com/zoe.hovland.composer. That's Zoe, Z-O-E, Hovland, H-O-V-L-A-N-D. There are lots of ways you can keep up with us, and the links to our website and all the podcast social media accounts are in our link tree, linktr.ee/The Game is Afoot.
You can also find us on Patreon. We are at patreon.com/TGIA podcast, all lowercase. If you have suggestions for things you'd like to see on our Patreon, let us know. Our email is thegameisafootpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Be gay.
Roll dice.
An LGBTQIA actual play podcast network.